The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there's any reaction, both are transformed. Carl Jung, Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst. Welcome to another morning episode of the Liberty Dad podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. If you're tuning in live, especially thank you for giving me your time so early. Man, I tell you what, today I had it all planned out. I was going to get up, just do a little bit of show prep, and be ready right at 7, right on the dot. And you know what happened? Here's what happened. Yesterday, my son had a birthday. And so pretty much the whole day was, either prep or having the birthday party or cleaning up after the fact, right? Getting it all squared away after the fact. And so I didn't really spend a whole lot of time on social media and I didn't really spend any time in doing any kind of show prep. So I was scrolling through and I just happened to see this video and I was like, oh, what's this? When I had a moment and I click on it and this is a guy and he's in a car and he's telling this story about something that happened to him. And I was like, I was like, that's interesting. I think I should do a show on this, like this, and sometime during the day, I had also I'm in this dad's group on Facebook, and I see all this like these guys coming in there and they're asking all these questions, and I see some like terrible advice. And so then between these two, I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll do like a dad advice episode. Let's kind of talk about these two things. And I was like, oh yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Like I got some ideas, I got some thoughts on both of these things, and they're kind of along the same line. So this morning, I decided. So last night I decided, you know what? I can get up a little bit later. I don't have to get up so early. So I get up 6 a.m. and I come in the office and I'm, kind of getting ready. And I'm like, all right, let me go download this video so I can have it prepped and ready. I go to Twitter, go to my bookmarks, and the user had deleted the video. And I was like, are you for real? Like, what? And I wanted to have this video. So then I was like, all right, well, let me see if I can dig it. So the way that like your phones work, and you've probably noticed this before, like if you're on social media, you can sometimes click on like say maybe your profile and scroll through and and even if somebody has deleted it or maybe they've blocked you because they didn't like your comment or something like that, sometimes you can still see it and you can still, through the cache on your phone. And so I was able to see the cache of the video on my phone. And so I was like, all right, well, let me try to search for this. Maybe some people were talking about it, other people. So I'm talking, so I start, typing in what I could to describe the video, and I get nothing. And so then I go back to the cache, and I see that it's from TikTok, and I can see the user's name who posted it, and I was like, oh, sweet. I'll just go dig this up from. So I find the guy on TikTok, and I start scrolling through all his videos, looking for this one video, right? Because I wanted to talk about this. Is like I didn't have any other plan, right? Other than to talk about it and give some advice and some stuff. And for whatever reason, it's not in his channel either. But it's the same dude. Like it's very, I clicked on a couple of other videos, and it's definitely the same guy. And I'm like, what in the world? Like, why did this happen? And so then I ended up like I saw that he had a YouTube channel. So I'm like, "Ah, maybe he's got it on YouTube." So I go to his YouTube. So like I spent much of the limited amount of time that I had this morning, I spent trying to dig for this video. And so I apologize for being late because I'm not only late, I don't even have the video. I wasn't even able to get the video. So and then finally I was like kind of getting frustrated because I'm like, well, I don't know that, both stories together I think are sufficient amount of content for a morning show, like, 30 minutes or something like that. I can do that. Like I'm ready. And I have some other things in the, some other irons in the fire to talk about. But I'm even less prepared to talk about those just yet. So I couldn't even do those on the fly. So I'm like, man, I've got to do something. Like I can't just not do a show because my material disappeared. And so, anyway, I'm going to tell you this guy's story to the best of my ability. And then I'm going to give you some of my thoughts on it. And then after that, we're going to jump over to this dad's group. And I've got a comment that somebody made a posting, and there was a whole bunch of comments, and I'm going to give you some of my thoughts on that. And anyway, while I was doing all this, and between yesterday and today and this morning, while I'm doing all this, I what I was thinking is like I might make this kind of a regular thing. I don't know how I will incorporate it. It does fall along the lines of culture, but it just seems to me that there's so much bad advice out there. Like very terrible advice. And it's just and I'm not trying to be like, oh, my way is the only way kind of attitude. I'm just like, I've seen advice, and I'm like, "That's gonna end up badly for you if you do this." Like, don't do why are people saying this? Like, and it's just crazy how much bad advice. So I'm gonna do the Liberty Dad thing, and I'm gonna start incorporating advice into my show. Now, how I will do it, I don't know if I'll do like like, hey, this every Tuesday mornings, Liberty Dad advice, kind of similar to how I frequently do my musings of a Liberty Dad, where I have like them even numbered, like, 1, 2, 3, 4, or whatever. I think I'm on like number 11 now. I'm not really sure how I'll do it. Maybe I'll just, do a morning show where we're talking about the news, and then we'll incorporate, like a little segment, so hey, if you're watching or you're listening, feel free to give me some of your thoughts on how you would enjoy having this kind of stuff, right? But let's get into this. So I'm gonna have to tell you the story, unfortunately, because I couldn't find the video, and I tried. I did my absolute best. I gave it a good shot. I sure did. So whatever, it is what it is. So this guy's in a car and he's talking. He's on his phone and he's telling this story about how he went into a coffee shop and he's in line, and the woman in front of him has a shirt of a band that he really likes. And he just kind of struck up a conversation. He was like, "Hey, that's a really cool band." Something like that. "I really like that band. You got good taste in music." Something very, very simple. And she's like, "Cool." Something like that. She's very simple. She didn't really. So, anyway, so she orders a drink, and he says, "Well, and then he's telling the story, and he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "She orders this drink, and it's like very similar or the same drink that I actually drink." And he's like, "That was kind of cool." So he said when she left, looked at the barista, and he's like, "I'll have what she just had. Like that's my drink right there. I like that." So he gets his drink and he sits down, and I guess she's at a table adjacent to him. And so then he's like, "Hey, what is your favorite album of that band?" This band, like he's because and I guess it was some band that's been around for a long time because he said he'd liked them since he was like a kid or something like that. And so she gets kind of rude and snippy with him. And and she says something to the effect, and she mentions it very loudly. So he says her response is loud and kind of embarrassing. She's like, "Stop talking to me. It's not going to happen." Something like that. Very rude. And so and I'm trying to remember the end of the video, like, I can't remember what he said at the end of the video, and I'm just like, this is why I wanted the video, right?" Like, because I didn't memorize the whole video to tell you because I wanted to show you. So, at any rate, I had a response. So, I actually retweeted this on Facebook, and my response was because he's, like, in his 30s, and I think it was something like, "This is why dating in your 30s is so hard," or something like that. And I said, "Look, I was single in my 30s. Bro, level up on response and confidence. You win some, you lose some. And then I said, straighten your shoulders, hold your head high. For the love of God, stop running to whine on the internet. Because that's kind of what I felt like it was. And then I said, also, you could have just said, I'm being friendly. Don't make it weird. Right. And so I think this is part of the advice I would give to young men. Like now I'm 45, I've been married for 10 years. I get it. A lot of you younger guys can be like, dude, you haven't dated in like decades, you know, and it would actually only be decade. I was like, but human relationships really don't change. Like we may have different places that we go to. Like when I was younger, you would go to like maybe the dance club or something like that. Or, if you're more of a church person, you might be like, yeah, I want to meet a girl at church, whatever. So people had their ideas and those ideas change, right? Like people maybe don't go out to clubs anymore. I don't really know. I'm 45. I don't go out to clubs. I can't hang that late because I got to get up at 5 a.m. to do my show, right? But I get it. Like the environment sometimes changes, but human dynamics generally don't. And the things that apply, the generic things that applied when I was young still apply today. They really do. And it doesn't matter whether you're online or in person, but it definitely matters in person because sometimes it's harder. It's easy to be confident online and talk. I mean, you see all the dudes and people talking trash and all that, and they would never say that kind of a thing to your face. So it's very easy to put on this facade of confidence online. But it's much harder to do it in person. So my advice in these kind of situations is first and foremost, you've got to be confident. No way, like the confidence will take you so far. It's amazing. And we're not talking about this. You see these guys online, they're like, yeah, you got to be confident. You got to check a girl and you got to put her in her place. Not that nonsense. The confidence about you, whether you're talking to a woman or another guy, just whatever, you strike up a conversation and it's not a relationship kind of thing. You just having a conversation with somebody in line at the store, whatever. You need to be confident. And that's why I said, like, hold your head up, straighten your shoulders, and then just act like you belong. So let me tell you a quick. I got a couple stories that I'm gonna tell you today. So I'm gonna tell you one story. A long time ago, I was in a meetup group, and it was for Ruby. It was called Ruby Jacks, and it's a web development group. Ruby was the programming language, and they would frequently have people come in and give a talk. And I like public speaking, but at the time, I was intimidated because I didn't know a whole lot about programming at the time. And some of these other guys, like, they were sharp. They knew their stuff. They knew a lot. Like, these guys, like, it was the kind of the situation where you're like, "I'm not sure I could tell you anything that you don't know or you find enlightening." And I was gonna give us a talk, and I don't remember what the talk was about. And I was expressing a little bit of, lack of confidence. And the meetup organizer told me something. I'll never forget what he told me. He said, "DL, if somebody invites you to speak, you don't need to prove yourself. The very fact that they have invited you to speak tells you that you belong there. So just act like you belong there. And you never know because even seasoned people learn something new from younger people. And there's many things that you can learn. And so he just basically he said, you need to be confident, right? Now, this is not dating per se, but it's applicable because it is dealing with human relationships. If you go and you listen to somebody and they're stuttering and stammering all over the place and they're expressing like, well, I think this is true, but I'm not really sure, but it sounded like a good if you are watching somebody online or maybe they're you're watching their YouTube channel or you're watching somebody in live in person and they don't sound confident, you're not gonna enjoy you're not gonna enjoy being there because you're gonna be like, "Oh, man, I don't know if I should listen to anything this guy or this gal says because they don't sound like they're confident. Why should I be confident?" Right? So you have to be confident. And that just simply means recognizing that you belong there and, wherever the situation is, and that you belong talking. That's it. It's really that simple. And it doesn't matter whether you've been invited on stage to speak to people or whether you're just trying to start up a conversation with, an attractive woman at the coffee shop. Now, what about when people say rude things to you? And that does happen. Like, that's a certain reality. I don't know if that particular story was true. I mean, it's online, people say things and maybe it's a made up story, maybe it's not. But the reality is, if you've lived long enough, you've probably heard somebody that told a similar story where they were either trying to maybe break the ice with a girl, or maybe they were just, for the purposes of, like, hey, she's attractive. Let me go try to talk to her. Maybe I can get her phone number. Or maybe it was just, hey, I'm trying to strike up a conversation, be friendly, yada, yada, yada. And we probably all heard somebody tell a story like that. And I even have, like, I probably have a bunch of stories, but one in particular in line with that rudeness. And I was in my, let's see, it's 2024, and this happened in 2002. And I know that because I was getting ready to deploy to Bosnia. So that's how I know that's why I can capture the actual year for this particular story. And one of my military buddies, he was a young guy going to college. And wherever we were, he was talking to his girlfriend, and there was like this party that they were talking about going out or something like that. And so, I'm sitting there while he's talking on the phone. I'm like, I knew he was talking to his girlfriend. I was like, dude, I was like, does your girl got a friend? And he was like, yeah, yeah, I'll ask. And so at the time, because I was getting ready to deploy, I think I technically just got fired from my job, but I was within like 6 months of deploying. And it was me with the National Guard. So this is why I actually had a civilian job. So I was getting ready to deploy to Bosnia with the National Guard, but I would be full-time Army during my deployment. And because of that, I decided to not get a job. I was like, I've got enough to live on for the next couple of months, and then I'm getting ready to leave. So there's no point in trying to get a job. It's going to be very difficult to have that conversation. Be like, yeah, you should hire me. And then, oh, wait, by the way, in 6 months, I'm leaving for like a year. Right. So that's just not going to work. So I'm in between jobs, and he's talking to his girlfriend, and he's like, yeah, he's like, my friend here wants to know if you got, a girlfriend that's single. And he looks over and he's like, "Yeah, she wants to know, what you do," or something like that. And now I'm not gonna say I'm unemployed, like that's not how you pick up women, right? And so I was like, "I'm in between jobs." Sounds a little better, but everybody knows. But at least it sounds better, right? And so then he's talking on the phone, and he's like, and he just kinda says something like, "Yeah, no." And I was like, "Oh, that seemed like okay, like you had a friend," and then I said unemployed, like, so later I'm asking, I'm like, "Dude, what'd your girl say?" Because it was clear to me during the conversation that he didn't repeat whatever it is that she said. I don't remember what gave it away, but there was something about the conversation that just seemed kind of weird. So I asked him, I was like, later, I was like, "Dude," I was like, "What'd your girl say when you asked her or when you told her?" And he was like, and he was kind of sheepish. He didn't really want to tell me this. I was like, "Dude, come on, just tell me, bro." Like we and he's like, "Well," she was like, we don't talk to people like that." Seriously, his girl told him when he told her, his girlfriend, that relayed I was in between jobs. She said, we don't talk to people like that." That's wild, right? Like, that's embarrassing, and it is what it is. Today, I assure you that I'm in a much different place than I was then. And I people like that. Yeah, today you would talk to me because I am people. I am people like who you talk about, right? Or my who you associate with. But that's okay. That happens. It's life, right? Like, and it's no big deal. And this is the thing: you have to take these kind of things with a grain of salt, and don't be bothered by them. This is why I say hold your head high, get them shoulders straight, right? Like, it's okay. Things happen. You're in a place in life, and maybe people dog on you, and then later, you're in a better place. And then whatever. Who cares what they had to say, right? Keep your head high, keep walking forward, shoulders straight up, and you don't have to run. Now, I get it. Social media, that's kind of what we do, but I still think kind of kind of unnecessary to get online and be like, dude, this story just happened to me. I mean, I could be wrong on that one, but fair. So anyway, when you're now you have to deal with this response. Like, what do you say? Like, what do you say if you're at a coffee shop and you're trying to just be friendly with the woman, or maybe you're trying to get her phone number, whatever, it doesn't matter. What do you say? Because now she said something embarrassing and you're feeling embarrassed, right? Here's the thing. You don't need to have a snappy comeback that makes her feel embarrassed. All you need to do is just, okay, walk off. That's one option. Like, who cares? Probably never see this woman again, right? Half the people in the coffee shop you won't see again. Who cares? So what? Right? It's happened to all of us. Like, like, if you've lived long enough, you've got a story to tell where somebody embarrassed you because they were being unpleasant. And that's okay. Like, it's really no big deal. It's not okay in the moment. I get it. It feels very uncomfortable, but you don't have to allow that uncomfortableness to make you feel less confident. And this is why I said, just could have responded and been like, I'm only trying to be friendly. You don't need to make it weird. And then go back to your coffee, call it a day. Right. Like, throw it back on her, but not in a harsh way. Right. Just like, look, stop making this weird. I was just trying to be friendly. Like, how does she respond? Like, no, you weren't. Like she could get into an argument, and then all of a sudden the tables turn, right? Then you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You said not to talk to me, so let it go, lady. Just chill. I'm respecting your boundaries. Now you've established them. Don't make it weird, right? But what if you're not the clever thinking kind of guy? Because, we're not always that clever. Practice these things. Think about it. Think about how you would respond and practice them. And and it sounds goofy, right? Like, really, do like, what am I just gonna go and stand in the mirror and pretend to? Yes, absolutely, yes. Go stand in the mirror in your bathroom without your phone and stand there and pretend like you're talking to a person. Like, if you're the kind of guy that would get kind of, startled and unable to make it, like, you get frustrated, you would have nothing to say because you feel so awkward and kind of you're trying to slink down. Well, then practice. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like, this is how you get better. This is how you this is how you get prepared for these kind of things. You practice a response. But the thing is, you want to practice a response that's simply going to allow you to remain confident. That's it. You're not trying to one up somebody else necessarily. You're not trying to make them look bad, because I personally would see that as being poor form, right? You don't have to respond in kind. You can just respond in a way that allows you to maintain your confidence and keep your head held high. That's it. And so when you're practicing in the mirror, if you're one of those chaps who isn't very quick on his feet, and one of the reasons that you don't approach a girl is because you don't know what you're going to say if she turns you down, which is usually the case. I mean, like, nobody's like, I'm not going to talk to that girl because what if she says yes and then we have a great date? Like, people don't do that. Like, they're like, well, what if she says no? Okay, well, that happens. Like, people say no. Like, if you want somebody to say yes, then you have to leave the opportunity for them to be able to say no. And so practice, but just keep in mind what you're practicing. You're not trying to be one of these crazy alpha males on Twitter. That's all gibberish, okay? Like, don't follow. Like, half these alpha males, or maybe even all of them. I see so many of these so-called alpha males, and they're like, "I'm rich and I've got all this money, and all these girls are throwing themselves at my feet." And maybe that's true. That's fine. But if you're the kind of guy that's looking to get married, have a family, that ain't the advice for you. Okay? You're better off seeking out a man who's been married for some amount of time and saying, how should I find me a woman so that I too can one day have a wife and a family? Right? Ask the married men, because we're going to give you the better advice. The playboys, they're going to give you playboy advice. And in my opinion, if you want to be a playboy and you're not, and you're trying to take playboy advice, you're simply setting yourself up to crash and burn, because either you're, in my opinion, naturally a playboy or you're not, right? Like, it does. But You don't have to like, there's in my opinion, there's no such thing as a natural, "I'm a married man." I think that's really well, I guess it would be natural, but I think that is more of the default, right? Like, we were we as human beings were created to have relationships. That is how we are by design. And I think that the playboys are something different, and you either are naturally a playboy or you're not. And so this idea that you're just going to go and listen to one of these alpha male playboys online, and all of a sudden bam, you've got all the dating advice, you're going to go and you're going to all these crazy terms that they have. I see it all. No, just skip it, because probably you're not looking for that anyway, right? You're probably looking for that one special girl so that you can meet and fall in love with, get married, have a family, and enjoy that kind of life. So listen to us old guys who've been married a while, because we're going to help you get there, because we get it, right? And we've probably had to suffer some of the same challenges along the way. And I would imagine, if I really thought about it, I've got a few more stories, right? Like, where I tried to, where it just didn't work out and I felt embarrassed. So practice this kind of stuff in the same way that you might practice going to a job interview, right? Like, if you know that, man, they're going to ask you, we know things that are going to happen because the stories are basically the same, right? You meet a girl, she's probably, if she's, she's probably been hit on by many other dudes, and she's got a defense mechanism, right? To weed out the guys um that she doesn't want to talk to. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you think that you're going to be the guy that maybe breaks that ice and gets through that, past that barrier in a non-creepy way, then you might have to practice. You might have to practice what you're going to say. And the practice helps you be confident, because then you know what to do. You know what to say. You don't have to try to think of it on your feet, and you don't have to try to worry about it ahead of time. Because like, hey, if she says no and she says something embarrassing, I'll just say this. No big deal. Right? I'll just say, look, you don't have to make it weird. Cool. Walk away. Or you can just say, okay. Oh, okay. Walk away. Again, shoulders back, head high. Right? So that's the concept. And so I think that's going to be your best bet when you're out there talking to women or anybody really, right? Whatever it is, just simply think about things in terms of, how do I maintain my confidence? That's all you need to do. You don't need to dominate anybody. You're not trying to be this alpha male. None of that stuff. It's all gibberish. Just absolute rot. Don't bother. All right. So I apologize again for not having the video. I disappeared from all over online. And so, like, I had to just tell you a story, and it's not really as cool. But at any rate. All right. So the second story that I have. So I got a second one, and this one comes from a dad's group. And this is an interesting group. It's called Dads Helping Dads. It's on Facebook. And I just kind of scroll. And man, I tell you what, if you're a dad and you are in that group, then you know that some people say some wild things. And Facebook has this interesting feature where you can post anonymously. And let me tell you, I have seen some wild posts, some crazy wild, and I'm like, wow. Some that are just, yeah, anyway, we'll skip that. So let me show you this clip. And I mean, it's not a clip, it's just text. I'm sorry. So I'm gonna read it to you. I'm gonna read this to you, and then I'm going to respond to it, and give you some of my dad advice. And the reason I want to do this again is because I'm like, you know, it seems to me that there's so much bad advice, and I'm Liberty Dad, so maybe I should start giving some advice out, from a level head. So that's what we're gonna do. So let's see. Let's pull that up on the screen here and see what we got. All right. So there we are. And it says, and it's kind of long. I apologize, but I'm gonna read it. Hey, fellow dads, quite an embarrassing post. And I'm quite ashamed to post it, but I got something on my screen, but looking for ideas that could help me. My partner is having a night out with her friends tonight, and she hasn't had one in a while and has been super excited. I'm not a nightclub kind of guy, but I would never stop her from doing something with her friends. But for some reason, I cannot seem to shake a crippling anxiety and never experienced anything like this before. I guess it's the thought of other dudes hitting on her and the fear of her acting on it. I don't think she would, but I'm sure you'll be able to relate to me when I say I can't help but worry. She's staying at her friend's house for the night, who may have her date with her and might have a single friend with him. What? Okay, yes, I know I'm overthinking this like F. I don't want to talk to her about it before she heads out, as she'll feel guilty that I feel this way and won't go out. But I want her to have a night out with her friends. Once I get home from dropping her off, it'll be bedtime for the wee one, and I'll be by myself for the night, which I'm really not used to. Guess it could be like separation anxiety. I've been with her for 4 years. I know I'm being a bit pathetic, but if anyone has any tips for me in this situation, then please let me know. Thanks, dads. All right. Wow, there's a lot to unpack there. There's a whole lot to unpack in this story. So, first and foremost, let remember what I just said about confidence. This post is rife with a lack of confidence, right? The guy's like, he's like, now it's okay to say you've got some anxiety about something. Otherwise, why bother posting it, right? Like, say, hey guys, I'm going through this thing and I've got a lot of anxiety about it. That part's cool. It's okay to have feelings, man. We can say that we're fearful about something, especially if you're coming for advice, right? So there's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with letting people know where you really are. How can we help you if we don't know where you are feeling? Because there are two components. There is, okay, here's the situation, and then there's here how you feel about the situation. And both of them need to be addressed. Okay. Now, if you feel confident in a situation, but you're just not sure what to do, like you're not anxious about it, well, then that's cool. Now people know, okay, oh, we only got to give you some advice on what to do. We don't have to address the anxiety. But here, this man is apparently very anxious. And the part that really stuck out that I really didn't like, that he really needs to work on, is the very last line. I know I'm being a bit pathetic. Stop. Stop right there. D- Don't even stop using that kind of language about yourself, even if it's true. You need to speak things as you want them to be. The more it's like called self-talk, right? If I walk around and I say, "Man, I'm just a loser. I'm just a nobody, and I'll never be, I'll people will never come and rely on upon me for anything." Well, then they won't, because you're busy telling yourself you can't do something. So therefore you won't. Right? That's the biggest reason. That's going to be your biggest stumbling block. The moment that you determine that you cannot be something, you have cut yourself off from being that thing. So the moment you say, I'm being pathetic, you are going to operate in that same fashion, right? Like that's going to be how you operate. So you have to stop with this. It's okay to, and again, it's okay to be anxious. It's okay to be fearful, and it's okay to express them, that where you are, but you don't need to have the negative self talk about yourself. Now, let's talk about this story. Whew. Okay. So my wife and I are in our 40s, mid 40s, and we have a 5-year old. Okay. We don't go clubbing anymore. We haven't been, we haven't been out on the town like that in probably about a decade. Okay. We're just in a different place. Now, if you're 40 and you like to go out to nightclubs, that's cool. No shade there. Right. But a lot of people in their 40s don't, because we're just preoccupied with other things. Right. I've got a podcast that I'm doing. I have my job. I affiliate chair with the Libertarian Party here in Jacksonville. I've got my son. I like to go out and work in the yard. I'm busy doing woodworking. I've got a lot of things that I'm doing, and I don't have time to go out to the nightclubs, and it's just not my scene anymore. Right. But it's okay to have a night out with the guys or the gals, right? Sometimes me and my buddies might go out to a cigar bar, right? And we have a cigar and a drink or two, right? So it's not that I don't necessarily go out, and it's not that my wife doesn't go out. It's just that we don't go out to particular scenes, right? We're not out dancing at night. But maybe if you're younger, if you're in your 20s or 30s, right? I don't know how old this dad is, but maybe they've got a little one and they're still like 32. I could see you still going out to some nightclubs if you're 32. If they're in their 20s, I could definitely see you wanting to go out and have a little bit of, music and dance and, and stuff like that. So no issue there, right? And my wife has girls' nights and sometimes even girl weekends. Like there's been times where she's like, "Hey, I'm going on a trip with so and so and so and so, and we're all going to go down to, Miami or wherever, and they go on a girls' trip, and that's cool. That's a good thing. I think I think in relationships, you should have that. This helps enjoy life to the fullest because sometimes it's fun. I enjoy being around my buddies, going out, having a cigar, or maybe just going out and catching up and having lunch. I mean, it could be different things, right? But these are good things. And I think it's okay for a girl to have a girls' night out. Now, what strikes me as a little weird is that she's staying at her girlfriend's house, which is a bit weird. Now, if my wife leaves town, then yes, she will stay maybe at a girlfriend's house. Like, she's got some friends that live in different cities and women friends, and they're married. And sometimes she may or may not stay at their house, depending on what's going on. Stay at a spare room or whatever. So that's not necessarily out of the ordinary. But in town, if she goes out with her girlfriends, she does not stay at their house because that's really weird. Like you can just come back to where you live. And I'm making a presumption here in this story. I'm presuming that this woman lives with the man. That's my presumption here. I'm presuming that they don't live in separate households. They have a child together, apparently. So, and everything about this story kind of reads like she lives with it, that they live together. And he calls her partner, so I assume that they're not yet married. Okay, that is what it is. Okay. But he's nervous because the girlfriend or his partner is going out with a girlfriend who's going to have a date. Okay. That's kind. That's fine. That's a little bit on the weird side, but not too crazy. Right. But then we get into this the the girlfriend's date is going to be at the house along with one of his buddies, right? Because it says here, where is it here? She's staying at her friend's house for the night, who may have her date with her and might have a single friend with him. Okay, that's a problem. That's like a huge red flag, guys. Like my wife would never stay at a single girlfriend's house if the single girlfriend had her date with her, right? Like that's just not something she would do. And she would absolutely not stay at a house where her girlfriend has a date and the date has one of his single buddies. And I would never be silent about it. Now, this is where we get into the interesting part of the relationship. Right? Like, because I saw some guys on there like, dude, you got to stop that. You got to put your foot down. And in a way, yes. But in a way, also no, because it comes across as like, I'm the king of the castle. You do exactly what I say. That is not a healthy relationship. But the fact that he didn't, he's like, I don't want to talk to her about it before she heads out and she'll feel guilty. That's also a problem because when you're with somebody, you should have a relationship such that you can bring up anything to them and say, "Hey, I'm not feeling comfortable about this," and they should be able to hear you. So let me tell you a story from my own life with my current wife, right? Um, my wife is a real estate agent. She had a coworker, and she would meet up with them, and they would do business, right? And no problem with that. And there came to a point where, and I'm not going to go into all the details, but there came, and there's not, they're not. Man, you know what? I'm going to go into the details. That's fine, no problem. Because I think this is important to share, and I think this is important to understand how a healthy relationship works. So, and they're not juicy or anything. I'm just trying not to divulge my whole life on the internet. But she's telling me, she's like, "Hey, I'm gonna go over to so and so's house and we're gonna work on some things together." I don't feel comfortable about this. And I don't mind, I get it, real estate agents, you got to go out to houses, you do videos, and I see the videos and blah blah blah. So I'm cool with that. So she's like, I'm going to go over to this guy's house and we're going to do some work. And I said, all right, look, I'm not really comfortable with this. And I start to talk about why I'm not comfortable. And she said, stop. You don't have to explain. You're my husband. You're not comfortable. I'm not doing it. That's it. And then she said, instead, would you be okay if I invited him here? Absolutely. I have no problem with that. Right. And then I actually worked with him on some stuff. Right. And that is that is how a healthy relationship works. Right. Now you could argue and say, well, she should have never done it in the first place. I disagree. Right. I think sometimes people get into working with other people and then maybe they don't always see how it might appear to somebody else. Right. So I don't have an issue with that. The issue is the big thing in a relationship is that you should be able to go to your significant other and communicate to them and say, hey, I'm not comfortable with this. I have an issue with it. And they should be willing to hear you out. And the best case scenario, in my opinion, would be that they say, you don't even owe me an explanation. You're not comfortable with it. I totally get why. I'm going to change my behavior. And I'm going to ask if you're cool if I do this thing and then do that. Right. And so I have no reason to worry because we have a relationship that is on the communication level open enough to bring our concerns to each other, right? And she sometimes will bring a concern to me. She'll be like, "Hey, it's not usually with like we don't. It's very atypical that we have a concern with the other person related to somebody else. That's very, very rare. Usually it's more like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this thing and, it's going to cost a lot of money. And I feel like I'm, not comfortable with it. What do you think? So we open ourselves up to each other and we're vulnerable. And that's part of being in a good relationship is that you can be vulnerable with the other person and they will address that vulnerability in a way that satisfies both of you. Because if you're with somebody, kind of like as the religious text would say, you become one, become one person in a sense, right? And I mean, not physically, I mean, you're still physically two different people, but you're connected in a way where you need to be in alignment as much as possible. And that's how a healthy relationship works, right? It's one person going to the other and saying, hey, I'm not comfortable with this. Or maybe it's not even that. It's something like, hey, I'm having some anxiety about this situation. Can you help me out? Right? Can you help walk me through it? And that is what you should be seeking. So for this guy, what I would have told him, I would have said, like, look, you need to address this right away and not in this, I'm the alpha male. How dare you? You won't be around other men. Not that. You need to address and say, look, I'm not really, I'm not comfortable at all with you staying at your girlfriend's house that lives in the same city, which again is a presumption on my part from the story. In the way that it's written, it suggests that it is in the same city. I'm not comfortable with you staying at your girlfriend's house while you literally have a house so many minutes away. Um, and then you should absolutely be able to say, I'm not comfortable with you staying at your girlfriend's house while she has her date over and possibly another single man who doesn't have a date. Right now, a lot of the guys in that thread, they were like, dude, she's going to sleep with them, blah, blah. Maybe, but that's like there's not enough in there for me to identify what this woman plans to do, right? Like this is literally just a short little story and he's talking about this one thing. And I think in addressing that, you simply need to say, have the confidence to bring yourself, how you feel to your partner and talk to them and say, all right, here's where I am. Let's talk this through. Right. And that is what you should be looking for. This is the kind of stuff these are the kind of answers that I think are too few because I see so many men out there or so many accounts. I don't know that they're always men because, you never know who's behind it. But I see all these accounts giving this advice and it's such bad advice, right? Like, oh, she's going to sleep with him. Oh, you need to be the dominant one. You're the man. You got to be the alpha male. You got to let her know, whatever. No, that's not how. successful relationship. And if you talk to somebody who's been married for 30, 40, 50, 60 years, right? And and those two people are just inseparable, you will never get that kind of advice from them, ever. Never. And that's because that kind of advice doesn't work. It doesn't work for that. It works maybe for the playboys. But again, if you're not a playboy, you're probably not going to practice your way into being a playboy. It's probably unlikely. I think that happens to be a personality that some men have and others do not. I do not have that personality. If I was a single guy, I would be a terrible playboy. Just the way it is. I've accepted that. But it's cool because you know what? Other than maybe when I was in my 20s, I never actually really wanted to be a playboy. And even then, I probably didn't want to be a playboy. I just wanted to be confident. So learn to be confident in yourself. Straighten up your shoulders and talk to people with confidence. It doesn't matter whether it's you're a single man and you're trying to strike up a conversation with a young lady or with a woman, young or older, depending on your age. It doesn't matter if it's at a coffee shop and you're trying to strike up a conversation with a woman, or if you're talking to your significant other, whether you're just in a a standard relationship, or if you're married. You should always have confidence in yourself that your voice matters. That's it. That is the extent of the advice that I have, and it applies to both of these situations, and it applies elsewhere. It applies when you're trying to go get a job. If you're confident, not cocky, confident, right? Then people recognize that, and you will be rewarded over time. Maybe not every time, right? You can be confidently turned down. It's happened. I've talked to people, I've had jobs turn me down. I've had women turn me down. And you don't all you win some, you lose some. And that's okay. And now we're getting to the point where let's throw a comment up on the screen because I just saw one pop up and I like it, and then we're gonna close. All right. So Keith says, in my opinion, how's it going, Mr. Producer? My producer just entered the show. In my opinion, every married couple should have an older couple mentoring or discipling them. 100% agree. Get out and get you some old people. And I can say that because I'm one of the olds. I'm getting there, right? I'm 45. I ain't no spring chicken anymore. Okay. But I'm getting wiser now as I get older, and I observe things and I experience things and I recognize what does work and what doesn't work. So absolutely, if you're like in your 20s or your 30s, find somebody that you can relate to, maybe in their 30s or 40s, or even better, if you can find somebody in their 50s and 60s who has been married. I mean, don't go find the 60-year-old man who's on his fifth marriage. Probably not that guy. Now, that doesn't mean you rule him out, but I wouldn't start there. I would go with somebody, the longer they've been married, the better off the better the advice that you're going to get, particularly if they've had a very, if they have a very happy relationship. Those are the people that you're going to get the best advice from because they're the ones that are going to help you get to where they are. If you want to, and it applies anywhere, right? If you want to become a successful business person, go find a person who has been successful in business for many years because they've experienced things, they've observed things, they've watched how it plays out, they've experienced how it plays out. They know stuff, right? So, absolutely get you somebody that can mentor you, somebody that is living the life that you want, except for the Playboys. Skip those guys. Yeah, we'll do that in a minute. All right. So my producer is telling me that we got some things to do this morning. So, folks, I want to thank you for watching, and I hope you found this episode informative and inspiring. Look for more of things like this in the future. Be sure to catch me Monday through Friday, 7 a.m., for an informed discussion on politics and culture. And then again, Sundays at 7 p.m. with my co host, Susan Hogarth. We're going to discuss LP happenings. We look across the vastness of tyranny that is in this United States. Yep. Hold on, buddy. We look across the vastness of tyranny in this United States, and we bring to you what is happening all across the US from the Libertarian Party so that can inspire you to do things in your community. Make sure you are subscribed to my YouTube channel, or if you prefer, my Rumble channel. You can go to youtube.libertydad.com or you can go to rumble.libertydad.com. While you're there, let me know how I'm doing by just leaving me a comment. And lastly, I want you to remember, if you're a champion of liberty, your business is people and your product is liberty. I want you to have a great week. Catch you next time. Remain confident. But for now,